Welcome to Lawyers Who Care, the video show podcast that highlights attorneys who go above and beyond for their clients. And on each episode, we will meet a new lawyer and they will share stories of when they went beyond legal counsel for the benefit of their client. My name is Andrew Samalin. I'm the principal of Samalin Wealth, a nationally recognized wealth management firm for lawyers, their firms, and their clients. And let's applaud Lawyers Who Care and learn from them. Today, my guest is Michael Haggard. He's the managing partner of the Haggard Law Firm, and they're based in Florida. Michael's firm is focused on personal injury cases, and since 2000, Haggard Law has delivered more than $2.5 billion in verdicts and settlements for their clients. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Good morning.
Michael, so tell us what brought you to the law.
Yeah, well, I was really fortunate. I grew up around the kitchen table where my dad was a trial lawyer, and I heard the stories of his clients and how he fought for them all the time, and I saw how hard he worked, but really, the interaction he had with his clients and the impact that he had on safety through his cases. So I kind of always knew that's what I wanted to do. And I was a public defender first out of law school, which I absolutely loved, and, got to represent the little guy against the big guy in the government. And that led me into doing civil trial work.
And, you've been doing this for a long time. So there's pluses and minuses on every single one of your days. Tell us what really, when you say, oh, or when you say, oh, this is great, what is that experience like for you as a professional?
Yeah. You wish it was always the great days, when you get the great result for the client and you see the difference it makes in their lives. But the process to get there is met with, your opponent. And usually that's a big corporation that hires big law firms that fights everything tooth and nail. And so that's a grind. And there's a lot of pressure, when you represent a quadriplegic who has to have that medical care or they die. That's not a regular job. It's a calling, in my view, and something that you've got to take the lows to make those differences for your clients.
Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned you had a great client story that you want to share. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, I try to tell young lawyers that, the law can be more about just one case. And we represented a young man who was stuck at the bottom of a pool drain and was stuck by the pump there holding him. And it was a terrible, awful, catastrophic event. And he was terribly brain damaged. What I learned in that case was that this had happened 26 times before, that the Consumer Product Safety Commission had a long history of this with these pump manufacturers, these drain manufacturers of swimming pools and hot tubs. And after that case, and we were able to get him a $104 million verdict, and it was a record verdict. But the problem was I went to the CPSC with everything I discovered in that case and said, you've got to change this. We have the technology to stop pool suction entrapments. All we need is a switch on the pumps. And I went to, over 4 years, went to 8 different Consumer Product Safety Commissions on my own dime, bringing around my boards. We didn't have PowerPoint back then. And nothing was done. In fact, I represented 4 additional families where they'd lost children on the same drain, the same pump. And our government and these companies wouldn't do anything. And then in 2007, Virginia Graham Baker, the granddaughter of Secretary of State James Baker, was killed in Alexandria, Virginia, on the same pump, the same drain. And when the Baker family retained me, we now had someone who had the ear of the folks in Washington. And through that case, we were able to pass the Virginia Graham Baker Act back in 2009. And we have not had a single suction entrapment since that bill was passed. Mm-hmm. So, it was a tremendous accomplishment by a lot of families that had lost their loved ones, knew exactly why they lost them, but didn't have that power, didn't have that lever in Washington to get it done. And so I tell young lawyers, this can be about more than just a case. It can be about really changing society and saving lives. And that was a very proud moment for not only for me, but really, I think, in the law.
What do you think holds up? What are the forces to not change what is clearly a defective product? You'll forgive me for being naive, but wouldn't, from a quality control standpoint, would you not want to bring less risk to the table, assuming that you're providing that product?
Yeah, in that particular case in that industry, the issue was at the time there were 3.5 million single drain pools. So those were the pools that were at risk because when you have someone get stuck, there's a single line of suction. When you have two drains, that doesn't happen. So the industry, the pool pump and pool drain industry, would have to fix 3.5 million pools. So that amount of money to fix those was an impediment in their mind to fix it. And kids died because of that decision they made. We saw the same thing with the Pinto Ford back in the day with the exploding gas tanks. We see it with drug manufacturers now. We saw it with tobacco. So big corporations, they don't change unless they have to when there's a monetary loss for them. And that's just a fact. I hate to say it. It's not hyperbole. That's just reality.
Mm-hmm. So I think, Michael, before we wrap up, if you could leave our listeners with one takeaway, either with regard to your practice or what would that be?
Yeah, the one thing I would say, to the folks is that it's a marathon, not a sprint. We work on cases and clients one at a time, but I think it's about the culture that you want to build into a law firm and really who you want to be as a lawyer. And that could be a lot of different things. It might not be to get into every cause in the world, and you might not have the time because of your particular practice. But I think if you look at everything as a marathon, your reputation, your professionalism, obviously your ethics, but also your plan over a marathon rather than sprint, I think that can help shape who you are, what your culture is, and also protect you against sometimes the stress of this profession, which is an incredible profession. We have never needed lawyers more in our society than we do right now at this time for a lot of reasons. And we need folks to last, not burn out.
Mm. So by the way, I'd like to thank my guest, Michael Haggard from the Haggard Law Firm in Florida. Michael, can you provide our audience with your contact information?
Sure. My email is mah@haggardlawfirm.com. And our phone number at the office, 305-446-5700.
Gotcha. This has been the Lawyers Who Care video show podcast that highlights attorneys who go above and beyond for their clients. If you're an attorney or no one who does, feel free to reach out to us, 914-666-6600. Michael, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.